Hello, welcome to the next installment of DropCap's Masterclass. Today we'll be talking about can your book travel, how to assess your global rights potential. My name is Lindsay Jones. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of DropCap, and I'm coming to you today from a rainy and gray Minneapolis. So I hope everyone else is enjoying some better weather than I am today. As we go along, I'm going to present a little bit about what rights are to start. Then we'll talk about how to assess if your book is a good fit for international licensing. And then we'll talk a little bit about DropCap itself and how it's doing things a little bit different from a traditional rights agency. So if any questions come up while I'm talking, please feel free to drop a comment in the chat and I'll save time for questions at the end. So let's go ahead and get started. So I like to start with just a bit of foreign rights licensing 101. If you've seen any of our previous videos, this may not be new information for you, but it helps to have this context when we talk about what rights buyers are looking for to understand how they're actually licensing content. So in a traditional agency, and again, DropCap's a little bit different. We'll talk about how we do things a little bit differently, but in a traditional agency, the first step would be for a rights holder, which is you as an author or publisher, signing a representation agreement with an agent. That agent is going to go meet with their network of rights buyers. These buyers are people like 8 other agents, editors, scouts, and publishers. And a lot of those meetings are actually going to take place at international book fairs. Your agent is going to pitch books to these rights buyers. A lot of that is taking place in person, face to face at these book fairs. A lot of it now is happening on Zoom as well. So they're going to meet with their network of rights buyers, pitch your book, and then if there's interest in a foreign publisher licensing your book, your agent will negotiate a contract with that foreign publisher, and that ultimately results in your book being translated, published in the country where it's been licensed, and you as the author or publisher receive an advance and then royalties on future book sales. So this is kind of the high level overview of how this process works. And next we'll talk about what rights buyers are actually looking for when they go out and meet with agents who are representing books. Now, the number one thing that they're going to see is your cover, which is kind of funny because they're actually going to change the cover when they license it. So if you license your book into Japan, for example, the market there is going to be attracted to different things. The readers have, different norms that they expect with a cover. And a Japanese publisher is going to actually design a whole new cover most of the time. And so it's kind of ironic that that's still the first thing that the buyer is looking at. But just like a reader is going to be interested and pick up a book based on what it looks like, that's the very first thing a rights buyer is going to see as well. They're going to hopefully get their attention grabbed with a nice title. And then because as an independent author in the rights market, you're competing with all of the different books that have been published by either big 5 publishers or other large presses. You need to make sure that your content has been professionally edited. Your book, you don't want it to stand out in a bad way. It needs to be on the same level as all of the other books in the market when it comes to professional design, editing, and production. So let's assume that you're already there. You've published your book. It looks great. How does it actually catch the eye of a rights buyer in another country? Some of the things they're looking for are topics that fit their market. This changes all the time. They can be niche or broad. Fiction, for example, tends to operate on different trends that are being fed by the readers. So, for example, right now in fiction, romance has been having a moment, in particular, romantasy, which is romance fantasy. Readers cannot get enough of these types of books, and that's influencing what is being licensed around the world right now. Another topic could easily take the place of romance in the next few years. It's kind of hard to predict. The trends are really driven by the audience and what the audience of readers is seeking. Um, Nonfiction tends to be a little bit more stable, and by stable, I mean it's less influenced by come and go trends. So in nonfiction, we see business books are always popular, especially business books coming from the U.S. We see career and leadership, self help, mind, body, spirit, wellness, lifestyle, popular science, all of these types of topics sometimes have trends within them that are more or less popular, like mindfulness, for example, has been popular for the past few years. But overall, nonfiction books are going to be less influenced by these really hot genre trends like fiction will. We see both broadly appealing books and niche topics be licensed all over the world. Again, it depends on what readers in that particular market are looking for at a given time. The most important thing is that the books are not solely focused on topics that pertain to the US. So, for example, if your book is about the US healthcare industry, people in other countries are not really going to be interested in hearing about that. And if your book is a business book and you're only focusing on examples of situations that happen in the US, that can make the book a lot more difficult to travel. That does not mean setting. So if your book is set in the US, if it's fiction and it takes place in Louisiana, for example, that can still be appealing. We noticed a trend when we went to the London Book Fair recently, where a lot of rights buyers were looking for books set in Japan. And those rights buyers were from all around the world. So the setting can be in the US, but the content should not be solely focused on topics or problems that are unique to the US. Other things that rights buyers are attracted to, of course, are domestic success. This can be sales. If your book is a bestseller, that's a great indication that a rights buyer from another country might be interested in licensing it. But book sales are not the only factor that they're looking at. They're looking to see if your book has won any awards. They're looking to see if you've gotten endorsements from other authors or experts in your industry or your field. And they're looking to see what sort of press your book has gotten. Have you been a guest on any podcasts? Have you gotten any sort of impressive Amazon ranking? Are you, being featured in a particular publication, even an online publication that is, specific to your topic? Those can all be a great way to show evidence that you're having success and traction with your book. And like I said, it doesn't necessarily have to be bestseller status to have a rights buyer interested in licensing your book. They want to see evidence of audience building. They want to see that you as an author are connecting with your readers. You have a social media presence. You have a website. You're doing things to get your book in front of people who want to read it. You can even use, if you're selling directly and you have the sales data, you can use that to show, I have people in Mexico that are buying my book in English. That is already showing there's an audience and a demand for my book in Mexico. A Mexican or a Spanish translation into Mexico might make sense. And if you have that type of data, you can include that in what you're presenting to rights buyers, which I'll talk about next. So some tips to successfully stand out. You really want to optimize how you are presenting your book. And this can be whether you're creating a sell sheet to pitch or query agents or rights buyers on your own. This can be something that if you do have an agent, you want to make sure they have all the information to create a sell sheet or some way to present your book to their network of buyers. Or if you're using DropCap Marketplace, which again, we'll talk about specifics to DropCap in a few minutes, you're making sure that you're filling out your book listing, which I have an example of here, because that's what rights buyers are going to see. That's going to deliver all of the information about your book. You want to make sure it's being presented in the best way with the information that is going to help it stand out. So things like having a concise book description. You don't want a wall of text. You want to say what your book is about, why readers should want to read it. And it can be very helpful to have comparable titles. So a rights buyer can look at that very quickly and say, oh, this book is like this other one. It helps them understand if they want to take a closer look. Having specific genres and a specific target audience for your book are very important. Rights buyers are typically only buying certain genres. They have specialties that they focus on. With DropCap, we target those specialties. So if your book is self-help, we're making sure that your book is being presented to those rights buyers that work in that genre and that license books in that genre. It's not helpful to say that your book is for everyone, because it's really not. It should be for specific people, specific age groups, and the more targeted you can be when you're presenting that information about your book, the more easily a rights buyer can then make decisions about whether it would be a good fit for them to acquire for their publisher. It's really important to highlight successes like sales and awards. Like I said, it's not just about being a bestseller. It's about the effort that you're putting in to build an audience and to market your book here in the US. So if you've published your book, you've done a great job of making it professional, well edited, you have a great cover, you're demonstrating that you're doing the work to get it in front of readers here. All of that is going to feed into your chances of success internationally. And you want to make sure, just like a resume, if you're going to get a job, that your book's listing or your book's sell sheet is presenting all of that information in an easy to understand way. Now, rights buyers also are really interested in knowing who you are as an author. This factors into their licensing decisions all the time. So have a photo and an author bio. They want to see your personality. They're investing in your book and they're investing in you when they decide to license it. So they want to know what your credentials are. They want to know what your education is. If you have any awards, or if you have a speaking platform or social media platform that's adjacent to your writing, not necessarily specific to your book, but is in support of your profession as an author, they want to know about that. That can be a huge factor. Also, if you're a dual citizen somewhere, that, or even just have residency in another country, that can be a big influence on their desire to license your book if you have a background of some sort in the country that they're coming from. And the last one I have here that often gets overlooked is make it easy for a potential rights buyer to get a sample of your book's interior. I've seen momentum get lost on so many potential deals because we were not able to quickly provide an interested rights buyer with a sample copy of the interior of the book. And I mean digital, I don't mean physical. So you need to be able to strike when the iron is hot. And as soon as they're showing interest in your book, they're going to want to see more. And you need to be able to provide them with that interior. Right. So how can DropCap help? Like I said, we're doing things a little bit differently from a traditional agency. In the rights licensing 101 example I gave you earlier, that's kind of the traditional model where you as an author or publisher need to query an agent, sign a representation agreement with them. Agents have limited bandwidth. They're going to be very selective about the books that they bring on because they can only handle a certain number of clients at once. My co-founder, Allison, when we started DropCap, she actually ran her own rights agency for over 15 years. And one of the reasons she started DropCap with us was because she had limited bandwidth. She had maybe 8 publisher clients and 3 or 4 author clients, and that was the most she could handle. We knew that there could be a way to bring more authors into the rights licensing market, and that's why we created DropCap Marketplace. So this is a way for you to access licensing opportunities without having to get agency representation. You don't need to query an agent. You don't need to find someone who's willing to take your books on. You can list your books on the marketplace, and our marketplace is being utilized by over 2,700 global rights buyers to find books that they want to license. I mentioned my co-founder, Allison. We have our rights director, Monica, as well. They have both been in the rights licensing industry for over 30 years each. And this is why we have this expansive network of global buyers, because they've built those relationships up over many, many years. So this is a way for you as an author or small publisher to take control of your subsidiary rights. It includes foreign rights, audio rights, licensing, that sort of thing, and get your book in front of the decision makers that are the ones that are licensing content. And then at the point where there is an offer for your book, say a publisher in France really likes it, wants to license it, you still don't have an agent, DropCap can step in. So our experienced agents, Allison and Monica, can come in at that time and negotiate the deal and manage the license for you. The platform is totally agnostic. So if you do want to do it on your own, or you do have an agent already, you don't need to use our agents, but we're always here to help. So a couple more ways to stand out that I wanted to mention because it's important, and DropCap can help with this as well, is additional promotions like international book fairs. So while much of the world has shifted digital, especially post-pandemic, we do a lot of marketing through email, through our rights platform, through Zoom meetings. It is still very important to have that face-to-face time, and that's why DropCap attends all of the international book fairs that take place throughout the course of the year, like the Frankfurt Book Fair in the fall, the London and Bologna book fairs in the spring. These are still important to rights licensing because it gives our agents a chance to meet face-to-face with our rights buyers and maintain those relationships. We typically have over 100 meetings pre-booked whenever we go to a book fair. And then because we have a booth, there's walk-in traffic that results usually in 50 or 60 more meetings just from having our books available for people to see as they're walking through the show. This is a really effective way to get extra attention on your book. A rights buyer is going to remember and think about a book that they held in their hands much longer than one that they just saw from a catalog page when they're meeting with other agents at a book fair. So we always like to get physical books into the booth so that our rights buyers can actually see and hold them, especially if the book is, full color children's book or cookbook, that sort of thing. So it's really a high value and high impact way to get more dedicated eyes on your book. And that can be sometimes just what you need to take that little extra step to stand out. So is your book a good fit? This goes back to the previous slide about what rights buyers are looking for. So does your book have a professionally designed cover? That's going to be the very first thing they see. You should make sure that it is eye-catching in a good way. Is the subject matter broadly appealing? Meaning, can it resonate with a wide audience that's not just based in the US, whether it's fiction or nonfiction? Do you have a domestic marketing plan in place? That means, are you taking steps here in the US to actively get your books into the hands of readers? Hopefully you are. And are you actively engaging with your readership? So are you on platforms like TikTok or Instagram? Are you giving talks that are in support of your book if you're a nonfiction author? We want to see that you are doing that work here because that's going to impact your appeal when international buyers are looking at your book. So questions, and I do have one in the chat here. If anyone else has questions, please feel free to drop them in. We still have a few minutes here, but I don't want to take too much of your time. I'm going to pop this one up on the screen. Kirsten asked, is there a minimum number of copies already sold in order to qualify to pitch to a rights buyer? If my book was independently published by a small press, can I pitch agents solely for international rights? So is there a minimum number of copies sold to qualify? No, there's no minimum. Part of the reason is because we like to license books that are just coming out as well. And if your book is forthcoming or has just been released, it's not really going to have a sales record yet. And rights buyers are going to rely more on what they know about you as an author and whether the topic or the genre is a fit for their list that they're looking to publish. Now, if your book has been out for a little while, I'd say they do want to see some sort of sales record. Again, it doesn't have to be a bestseller, but if you can demonstrate that you're selling reliably, 20, 30 copies a month, that can be a really good indication. But to be completely honest, sometimes books are not selling well in the US, but they are a topic that is very appealing elsewhere and they still get licensed. So I wouldn't say there's any hard and fast rule, but some sort of track record is good if the book has been out. And if it was independently published, can I pitch agents solely for international rights? So yes, first I would make sure that you control the rights. So sometimes your publisher, whether it's an indie publisher or a big five publisher, they're going to have in your author contract that they control the foreign rights to your book. So I would go back and look at my contract first, make sure that the rights are under your control. And then, yes, you can pitch agents or query agents to represent you for your foreign rights. We do have a traditional agency as part of DropCap Agency. We pick up a select number of books just for representation, but a lot of authors go the marketplace route because it is a very low cost and easily accessible way to get your books in front of rights buyers without having to do too much work or spend too much money. So I would say both are a viable option. You can have your book on the marketplace while you're querying agents. But yes, there are definitely agents that focus just on international rights. All right. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. If you would like to send me an email, I will put my email up here. If you think of anything later that you'd like to ask. And I'd also like to offer 10% off a subscription to DropCap Marketplace by sharing your lunch break with me. You can use the coupon code LUNCH for 10% off your first year. And again, feel free to email me if you think of any questions that come up. I'm always happy to help. So have a great Wednesday and thanks for coming. Bye.